Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Manitoba Start is the leading provider of career services to newcomers in the province of Manitoba and connect businesses to a world-class workforce. I would like to welcome you all to this Labor Market Connections webinar, a series of live broadcasted events designed to assist you in entering the Manitoba labor market. To begin, Manitoba Start operates from Treaty 1 territory, the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and homeland of Métis people. We acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 41st Nation. Acknowledging this truth is important, yet only a small part in cultivating strong relationships with Indigenous communities. Today's webinar is focusing on the St. Boniface Hospital volunteer services. My name is Eda Can. I am Labor Market Connections Coordinator here at Manitoba Start, and I will be your host for today's webinar.
Bonjour tout le monde, je m'appelle Rob Hamazer et je travaille pour Manitoba Start en tant que traductrice en français. Et je serai ici pour vous aider avec toutes les questions que vous avez en français. Bienvenue encore à ce webinaire et merci beaucoup.
Given the large number of participants who joined this webinar, we have muted your microphone to allow for better clarity and less interference. Before we begin, I will be going over a couple of housekeeping items. You can use the raised hand feature to indicate that you have a question or comment. To do this, you can click on the Participants button in the meeting controls, find the raised hand icon next to your name, and click on it. This will notify us that we have a raised hand. Teams webinars provide the Q&A feature that allows attendees to ask questions specifically in the Q&A panel. To access this, click on the More Options, 3 dots button in the meeting controls, and select Q&A. You can then type your question in the Q&A panel. Before I introduce our presenter for today, I would like to run a few polls to get to know you better. So the first poll asks, are you registered with Manitoba Start? Yes or no? I will give you a moment to answer. %100 said yes. And on our second poll today, do you need help with a resume, cover letter, or interview preparation? Yes or no? Again, I will give you a moment to answer. %25 said yes and 75% said no. And on our third poll today, where are you joining us from today? Northern Manitoba, Southern Manitoba, Winnipeg, outside of Canada? I'll give you a moment to answer. %100 said Winnipeg. And on our last poll for today asks, what is your reason for attending this webinar? Are you an internationally educated professional, settlement worker, career coach, or other? I'll give you time to answer. 50% said internationally educated professional, 25% said settlement worker, and 25% said other. Thank you everyone for participating in the polls. Today's webinar is with the St. Boniface Hospital Volunteer Services. Volunteers are an important part of St. Boniface Hospital and have a long-lasting impact on patients' experience. St. Boniface Hospital is fortunate to benefit from the talent and expertise of over 350 volunteers who donate over 40,000 hours of their time to the hospital each year. So please welcome Jennifer from St. Boniface Hospital Volunteer Services. Over to you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much. Yeah, nice to be here with everybody today, and just kind of talking about what it's like to volunteer at St. Boniface Hospital. So as Ida had mentioned, we have over 300 volunteers, and they contribute thousands of hours every year to our hospital. We have about close to 40 different volunteer roles that volunteers can do. And a lot of people, when you think about a volunteer in a hospital, you think about, the gift shop, and we have volunteers to greet people and help people find their way around the hospital. So we definitely have those volunteers, but we also have many other roles and specialty areas, such as our art gallery, where we're one of the few hospitals in Canada that have art gallery within our hospital, and we rely on volunteers to be here to have that gallery open. If we didn't have the volunteers, then the gallery doesn't open. We have volunteers in a art at the bedside program, where they're going to patients' bedside and doing art. We have newspaper delivery, so many different roles. A big one of our main roles is our ambassadors. So those are our guides. So you may see the ambassadors at the main entrance, but we also have these volunteers in the emergency department, dialysis, diagnostic imaging, and these are all volunteers who greet people as they come into further appointments. And it's often a very stressful time when people are coming to the hospital for appointments. So having a volunteer to kind of be there to help them, and knowing that, helping the person realize that, hey, I'm going to help you get to your appointment, it just really makes it a sense of ease for the people to get to their appointments. So that was just kind of a quick high level introduction to some of our roles. I guess you're here today because you might be interested in volunteering in a healthcare setting. And we're one of the hospitals in Winnipeg, and I know all the hospitals have a volunteer department. So can always reach out to any of the hospitals throughout the city to find out more information as well. But a lot of people come to the different hospitals if they have that interest in being in healthcare, and we rely on the volunteers to be reliable and dedicated to their commitment. We do ask for volunteers to commit at least 6 months, because well, I'll get into it shortly, but by the time we do the interview, the reference checks, the orientation, the training, we want the volunteers to be able to make a commitment to us, because it's a lot of time that we put in first, that we want to hopefully, have that volunteer as part of our program for at least 6 months or so. So that's important. We do our best to match the volunteers with a role that they would really enjoy doing. We're not going to, if you apply and you're interested in volunteering in one area and we say, no, we only have opportunities in another area, that's probably not going to be the best match. So we always try our best and make sure you're going to be of interest and enjoy your placements. So we'll always do our best to make that match very suitable. And of course, we are a bilingually designated hospital. So we are English and French. But we do ask that everybody, staff and volunteers, they have to have good, English speaking skills, and then French is an asset. And we also have like another language access program that we have buttons for our volunteers to use. So, if you speak English, but then you also speak different language, then we would have a yellow button that would identify which language you speak. So it just speaks to, like, if a patient sees that button and it's written, hello is written in the language that you know how to speak. So then that could really resonate with a patient if they come in for an appointment and see, oh, you speak this language, I speak that language, and then they could potentially converse, in that language. So the steps to become a volunteer, if you are interested, you can visit our St. Boniface Hospital webpage by Googling St. Boniface Hospital volunteer section and then how to apply. But you can complete the volunteer application form and then submit it. And you can either submit that by email, which our email is listed on the site as well, or by faxing it in, dropping it off, or whatnot. So on the application, you would list your information, kind of what areas you might be interested in volunteering in. And at times, depending on what area you are interested in, there is a bit of a waiting list. I know some people think, what, you're on a waiting list to volunteer your time, but we have so many people know that we have a volunteer program in the hospital, and other hospitals sense this as well, that they don't necessarily have to do a lot of recruitment. So, we do our best to match people with the right roles that they're interested in, but some of those roles do have waiting lists because those programs are full at that time. So say once you do apply to volunteer and bypass the waiting list, then you may be called in for an interview. So it's very similar to the process that you would take if you were going to get a job. You would be contacted by us. We would schedule a volunteer interview. The interview takes about 15 to 20 minutes. And then if the interview goes well, then we do ask for a list of professional references for us to contact references. And if that goes well, then the process of the orientation is next, where you learn about the hospital, our policies, our procedures, so you know the rules of what we expect of our volunteers before coming for your shift, so that you're going to be successful and do well in your role, because we've educated you on our orientation. And then based on which area you're volunteering in, you would receive volunteer training post-orientation to get to know that specific role so that you're successful in your volunteer placement. And then we do ask, as I mentioned, for you to be able to commit to 6 months at least after that. And when we do have volunteers coming in, most hospitals rely on volunteers making that weekly commitment. So say if you can volunteer you say you're available Tuesday mornings from 8 a.m. to noon, that's going to be that you get paired with a role that has that same time, then that's going to be your same shift every week. So your shift times and days don't change every week, because that would be really hard to coordinate over 300 people if the schedules are constantly changing. So they're very stable from week to week, and your hours remain the same. Unless there's a conflict in the schedule one week and you need to let us know, then we can always make exceptions. But that's kind of how we structure our program. And you go through volunteer services for any type of schedule changes, not the placement that you're working in, because we have to, or volunteering in, we would do any schedule changes within our department. And then some perks of volunteering is just you get a lot of experience within volunteering, what it's like volunteering in a healthcare environment. Another big thing is a reference. We do say, because we ask you to commit at least volunteer for 6 months. So, that gives us a chance to also get to know the volunteers and their work ethic and their dedication, because then after that commitment is completed, then we can be a reference for volunteers once they've contributed that amount of time, because now we've gotten to know the volunteer well enough to feel that, yes, I can, speak to them and give them a reference for a potential volunteer opportunity or employment or so forth, or school, those types of things. Reference letters we write. You can meet a lot of people through volunteering. And then sometimes a perk is parking. Our volunteers who do drive do get a parking pass to park in our parkade when they are here, so they don't have to worry about where to park when they're volunteering. Our volunteers get a uniform, which is a vest and an ID card, so then you can be identifiable within the hospital. So those are just some of the perks that what entails being a volunteer. So that kind of is a high level run through of what it's like and the steps of how to become a volunteer. Does anybody have any specific questions for me?
Thank you, Jennifer, for that informative presentation. Now we will open it up to the audience. Do we have any questions? Again, please type your questions in the question panel box or raise your hand and we will unmute you so you can ask your question. We welcome both English and French questions and we will try to get through as many as time permits.
Alors, est-ce que nous avons des questions? Encore une fois, veuillez écrire vos questions dans le panneau questions et réponses ou levez la main et nous réactiverons votre micro pour poser votre question. Nous essaierons d'en traiter autant que le temps le permettra.
I have a question here in the Q&A. Are there specific roles for newcomers or those with limited healthcare experience?
That's a good question. We don't necessarily have specific roles for newcomers because it could be similar to like a person who's lived in Winnipeg all their life coming and volunteering or applying to volunteer in the hospital. They might not have any experience either. It just depends on kind of what you're interested in and if those duties and responsibilities of that role would be able to be fulfilled by or completed by the applicant. Yeah, I don't know. Does that kind of answer the question?
Thank you so much. And we have another question in the Q&A panel. If you don't have any references, what can we do?
Yeah, that's a tricky part because we do require references. Sometimes, if they're if there's someone like a friend, like we always say like professional references, but if you have a friend that could still be your reference, then maybe we can make an exception. Or if you're working with an agency, such as management, so I don't know how that works. If someone there can vouch for the applicant, or if there's someone from your home country that we could reach by email. We've done that before as well. So we try get creative in how to potentially make that work, but we do need at least, we ask for 3, but we try get a hold of at least 2. So there's some flexibility with that.
Thank you so much. And does the hospital offer any specialized volunteer programs for international professionals looking to enter the Canadian healthcare system?
That's a good question. Not through volunteering. Like the one thing about St. Boniface is that we are like a teaching hospital. So sometimes, like if volunteers do come on board and they want to reach out to education services for a potential sometimes we offer job shadowing. So that could be that could be an option as well as just doing more of a job shadowing for like a couple hours or so, but it's not necessarily like ongoing. You would have to, but in that like in a professional environment, like we would have our volunteer roles, but we don't have any type of um roles where if you have like a professional designation from your home country coming and doing that as a volunteer here or to gaining experience or shadowing, I don't think we have that for the long term. But that might be a question for education services of to how to work around that.
Okay, thank you so much. And there's another question on the chat. I haven't found any volunteer job postings in the accounting and finance section of the hospital's website. Will there be any opportunities available in the future?
That's a good question. So sometimes like we don't often like in hospitals, this is my second hospital I've worked at in Winnipeg, and I've been in the field for about 15 years, and tep, we don't usually have volunteers helping in the finances like departments. Um, like the question for that would be like, I don't know if if you go on Volunteer Manitoba's site, sometimes like there is boards or councils or someone that's looking for, help with like accounting experience or something like that. That may be and better opportunity to reach out to some smaller organizations that may be needing help with the board for accounting measures and different things like that. Um, Sometimes on volunteer management, I've seen people looking for uh, different volunteers for their boards and whatnot in regards to the accounting. I don't know if that helps or if anybody has seen any of those type of ads up before.
Mhm. So there is another question in the chat box. Hi, I am an international radiographer with 6 months experience in my own field, but at the moment I have no reference. So am I able to work in as a volunteer as a technician?
Unfortunately, not as a volunteer technician. No, like the volunteers, like that's the one thing I should mention too. When you're volunteering in a hospital environment, we also are a unionized environment. So every volunteer role has an activity description, which lists your roles and responsibilities of a volunteer. And even though you may have experience doing a different role as a doctor in your home country, you can't come into a volunteer role and do any type of um, role that would be that of a professional, because that would be a grievance with, say, our union that we have. We volunteers have to be able to follow their roles and responsibilities to a T, but you wouldn't be able to do any work of a profession, of a professional designation.
There is a comment on the chat box. I called educational services for job shadowing weeks back, and they said they no longer offer such opportunities.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe I misunderstood that then. Hmm. Okay, I could, yeah, I would have to look into that.
We have someone writing a question right now. I can see that. Like, I'll wait for it.
Sure.
If you have questions, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you too. Someone is asking any opportunities for job in the food handler.
You can always look on the St. Boniface Hospital career page. So if you Google WRHA careers, there is all the sites are on that site in terms of the different job postings that they have listed. I guess if you see something that's regards to food preparation and whatnot, then you can definitely apply for the job through that. But in terms of volunteer services, we don't have any opportunities in that area for as a volunteer.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for all the participants for your excellent questions. Now I'm going to share my screen. If you are not currently a Manitoba Start client, you can call our front desk, visit in person, or complete our online registration form that is on our website under For Newcomers tab, Register for Services. As you can see, you can click on here and you can register online. By registering with Manitoba Start, you will connect with settlement services and have access to career services that can assist you with resume development, career planning, job search strategies, and interview skills. For a list of programs and services offered by Career Services, go under the Career Services tab. As you can see, we offer many workshops and many resources here. And lastly, please take a look at our events page, events calendar for our new events, that upcoming events. And if you miss a webinar, you can always go to events and webinar recordings and watch the webinar recordings that you've missed.
Et si vous avez besoin du soutien au niveau de contacter la communauté francophone ou besoin du soutien à la recherche d'emploi, veuillez contacter EDA pour cela. J'espère que vous avez trouvé cela utile.
Found that useful? Please don't forget that Manitoba Start is here to assist you by providing services such as personalized career coaching, developing your resume, or job search assistance to find you sustainable employment. Please follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest events. So on behalf of Jennifer from St. Boniface Hospital Volunteer Services and the Manitoba Start team, thank you for attending and stay well.